We're going to get right into our first speaker of the day, and that is Mimi. I think some of you already met Mimi if you went on the tour of Princeton. And Mimi is passionate about community and the importance of shopping local and supporting small businesses. I understand she also pretty much rides her bike everywhere, which is also important for a sustainable community. And Princeton is the kind of place where you can do that. And she clearly knows lots of facts about the community. In a 2009 interview, Mimi said that the last train robbery in America happened on the Dinky. Is that true?
It's true.
Okay, I'll never think of the Dinky the same way. I think she epitomizes what's unique about community entrepreneurs. They observe, they see what others don't. They connect the dots, and they come up with new ideas for something great to offer to the community. And that way, they too build on to the culture that makes the community what it is. And they make it a better place for everyone to live in. So let's welcome Mimi to the stage.
Hey guys, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about building a community through pie and chutzpah. And we're calling it a Cinderella story, and that's the first kind of chutzpah move of this. I'm actually going to cast myself as Cinderella today. That does take a lot of chutzpah because, one, I'm too old for the part. I think we all know that. Number two is that everybody kind of looks at Cinderella as kind of not that kind of a hero type. She's a little non-PC, right? I don't look at Cinderella that way. I look at Cinderella as this girl who found herself in a really tough situation, right? She's got these horrible stepsisters, this horrible stepmother. And instead of freaking out or giving up, what she did is she ended up working. And she worked hard. And she created a group of sympathetic supporters that when she needed them, they made sure that she didn't fail. Now, she was pretty smart, too. Not only was she a hard worker, she was a networker. And she networked with the right people. The cutest mice and birds in Disney history. Who cannot love those mice and those birds? Now, at the time, I don't think she knew that they were great at making a dress and doing hair, too. But it was a smart move, right? Now, most of the time, people will probably give all the credit to the prince. But it really was going to be Cinderella. When that fairy godmother showed up with the opportunity of a lifetime, it would be Cinderella and those mice and those birds that took advantage of the situation. The prince gets all the credit for the end of her story. But I probably think if we could interview this Cinderella and the mice and the birds, frankly, they'd probably say they got Cinderella to the ball, and they're probably the hero. Now, you can tell from the little bit I've said so far that I'm from the South, Nashville, Tennessee. Yay! I got my college degree in Tennessee, and then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I was armed with a social work degree. It took me about 2 seconds to realize that I couldn't support myself with a social work degree in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, when you're raised in the South, you have two distinct genetic advantages. One, there's the birds, yes. One is we get these really cool accents. And yes, we amp it up just for folks like y'all, and I'll do that today. It's true. We work you pretty hard. So we get the cool accents, but the other thing is we're natural networks. You guys, we don't even think about it. We just kind of network all the time. And so the networking didn't hurt. It was great that I had the accent, because clearly down south, not being from around here can really hurt a girl. So I did okay, and I went into sales instead. And I learned business through some of the largest healthcare companies around. And they taught me that a really smart business, right, is going to have a very strong business plan. They also taught me that it's going to have a corporate mission statement that's bigger than the bottom line. I had a lot of fun working for corporations, but about 9 years ago, I gave up other people's plans and other people's missions. Not because I was sick of it, I loved it, but I had a new one. I got married. I married a guy named Steve. I call him Steve-O. You can too, after this. And we had a baby named Stosh. And my new mission was my family. And so when I quit my job, Steve's job actually took us all over the world. And I was lucky enough to see the world for free. And when I got to see the world, I became a student of communities. When you go to a lot of different places in succession, you really immediately you feel if a community has camaraderie or not. You can't really fake that. And so when we ended up traveling around, I figured out that our mission was really flawed. We didn't have a community that we were attached to. We had a cool lifestyle, but we were kind of vagabond. And so when I went to Steve and I said, dude, we've got to be part of a community, he was like, you're right. And so he went out to find the one that he thought we'd be best in. The community we live in now, and you heard it here first, I'm serious. I would eBay everything I'm wearing, everything in our condo, to stay inside the community I'm at now. Now, the reason for that is because anybody who visits here knows that in about 2 seconds, it's a pretty special place. Our community happens to be an Ivy League town. So you already know it's got beautiful architecture, wonderful historic sites, incredible cultural and academic venues, right? And it was beautiful to see. When I moved in, I immediately figured out that 2 seconds later, I didn't need a car. I could just bike everywhere. It was all so beautiful. And all of those beautiful things were amazing to see, but the real people I wanted to know were the colorful personalities. And a lot like Cinderella, I found my birds and my mice. And yes, I'm going to milk my casting of Cinderella throughout this entire thing, so just get okay with that. It's my last moment probably to ever do it. And so my mice and my birds were the mailmen. They were the merchants. They were also people like bus drivers. They were going to be bus boys. The people that I got on my team were pretty famous people. One in the back was Cornel West. He's one of our neighbors, right? So we have a diverse group of folks that became kind of our neighbors. And they really kind of liked me. And so what ended up happening is I fell in love with the town. If you have never had a Southerner fall in love with you, my husband can be the first one to tell you, when we fall in love, we're a little in it to win it, right? You just need to get okay with it. And so I fell in love with the town. What I ended up doing is I asked people in town, I said, you know what, I really want to show you off. What I want to do is start a tour company. And these guys were totally all over it. I went over, you saw some of the slides, and there's so many supportive people in my community. These guys have totally got my back. When I asked them if they thought a tour company in my community would work, I totally got the thumbs up. And that thumbs up let me know that it was actually a great idea for us to go ahead and start this business. My husband came home and I said, we need to go ahead and start this business. Sorry. And he said, hey, this sounds great, right? And I said, well, you know what? I want to do it a little different than what we did before when we were in the corporate world. What I want to do is create a mission statement that's much different. And what I want to do is, what if we pretended that the community we're in is actually the venture capitalists behind our business? What if they're the ones that we have to make sure they benefit as much as we do throughout our business? And he was like, I like it. I was in sales. So, you know, you sell the first thing, then you want to sell more. I kind of took it too far. And I said, you know what? I'm awesome. That's great. You're on board. I want to leave this thing with one emotion, love, and a poem. Steve was like, okay, I didn't know. I don't like it. He was like, I get the love. Check the box. That's fine. But what's the poem? And I was like, oh, it's Ithaca. My favorite part of Ithaca is right here. Have Ithaca always in your mind. Your arrival there is what you're destined for. Ithaca gave you a splendid journey, and without her, you would have never set out. Now, Ithaca is a poem about having a fierce determination toward a goal. That determination is what's going to fuel you in your business, right? For me, Ithaca is my community. For you, it might be something else. The fierce determination and the goal is really not the point of the poem. It's all about the process of getting there and knowing that you're going to do well as you're building your business or working on your Ithaca, but the other part is that you're going to fail, and get okay with that. Because once you know you're going to fail, or you possibly could, your courage is going to grow. And the strangest part is your goal will get bigger. And the whole idea is that you'll create a goal that's maybe bigger than yourself. So we knew we had a great idea, right? Steve, to be honest, I thought he was a little bit halfway in. In fact, he probably set up his own eBay account because he probably thought the business was going to fail. Here's an idea of how Steve feels about running a business based on your community. Here he is here dressed as a ghost. We were like at some fair. That's actually my mother right there. I forced all of them to do embarrassing things to promote my business. Here he is my favorite geek. He's a nerd for the day right there. So Steve was totally on board. And then basically I had to go back and find out how I was going to start a tour company. So I went to my public library. I said, guys, I'm going to start this tour company. What do you think? And they were like, great. They got me all the reference materials I needed. They got me all the biographies, everything I could possibly need. But then they gave me my brand. And they said, you know what, Mimi, you really should interview people in town that remember these famous personalities. That's going to make it different. But you're right. So I went around and I did all those interviews. Now I've got some street game. Because here's an example of a note I got. Einstein's last girlfriend was right here in this community. And his, the niece of this last girlfriend actually meets with me all the time and tells me different things about Einstein. So now we've got people in the community that are actually kind of for us. So I knew I had street game. Now it was time to run those numbers, right? So we go to the business plan. I start crunching the numbers. Guess what? All the love in the world wasn't going to make that tour company work. The rent was really high in this neighborhood where we're living in. So I went back to all my mice and birds and I said, guys, I'm so sorry I wasted your time. Thanks so much for the thumbs up. It's not going to happen. But it was a great idea and I'll talk you up, right? And they were like, really? You're not going to do it? Now, in this community I happen to live in, the oldest cycle shop in America is located. Charlie, who owns Cop Cycle Shop, said to me, Mimi, wait a second, you've already bought the 24 bikes. Put them in the parking lot. I won't charge you for it. Let's see if this thing's got legs. Then, Mr. Landau, his family owns one of the oldest shops in this town. They happen to have like a Fifth Avenue type, Madison type address. It's right where all the tourists go, right beside Starbucks. And he said, Mimi, why don't you use the private alleyway that's right beside our business? You can put your information there. And then you'll see, you've got basically a billboard, you'll see if this thing's really got legs. Don't give up on it. So they gave me that alleyway. Now that made a huge difference because all of a sudden, word spread. And everybody rallied around us. Hamilton Jewelers got on board and they said, hey Mimi, we've got like signage rights, you can go ahead and use our signs. So now you'll have 2 signs and you can be like maybe the most popular corner in the block. And so now both those signs are there and that alleyway has really given us a business. And so you can see that we grew and it was very exciting. And nobody was upset when our business grew because we actually gave a lot of them business as well. So we were never kind of competing or anything like that. So everybody had their fair share of the pie, right? And it's amazing, when you share the slices of the pie is actually going to get bigger. I happen to live in a community where Einstein lived for 20 years. Just when you thought the crazy tour lady couldn't get luckier, Einstein's birthday's on March 14th. 3.14, the numeric equivalent of pi. That was a pretty huge idea, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with this? I went over to my public library, right? And I said, you guys, do you believe that this is Einstein's birthday? And they immediately were like saying, yes, I know. What are you going to do with that? And I was like, I don't know. What are y'all going to help me with? How can we do that? And they said, well, we've got a lot of friends. We'll get on the phone. They got the plasma physics smarty pants to agree to do all sorts of science experiments on the day of Einstein's birthday. Then I went over to the university nearby, and I said, you guys are kind of the smarty pants. Do you mind being the judges for the pie recitation contest? They were like, absolutely, we'll do it. I was like, then I knew we had something. I went to Joy, who does my graphic design, and I said, Joy, I need a great logo, kind of like Cinderella's dress. She's like, great, sounds great. So you can see this logo throughout these things. We're going to start to kind of build a buzz about this pie day. And everybody got excited, right? It's going to be everybody who I go to all the merchants and I said, basically, listen, will you put this logo inside your store? You guys can do like stuff for sale, $3.14, right? One guy said, yeah, or $59. I was like, why that? And he's like, well, that's the next 3 numbers in pi. I was like, oh, the stupid community. You guys drive me crazy. You're so smart. So everybody's going to get on board. The promotion was crazy. We had local newsprint go nuts. We had front pages. We had people who gave us free advertising for 3 weeks. It was a total community love affair, right? And so everybody was ready to go. Now, between all us girls, the librarians and I, if we had 314 people show up, we would have been thrilled, okay? We had no idea if it was going to be a flop or not. Just when you think the crazy tour lady couldn't get luckier, right? Guess what the weather was like on Pi Day? It was a hurricane! Technically a nor'easter, but I like to exaggerate. So at any rate, so we're going to have this huge hurricane, and everybody was freaking out. Everybody was calling me and saying, you're going to cancel, right? So where did I go? I called the library. I was like, are we going to cancel? And they're like, honey, this is not our first time on the dance floor. You don't cancel, right? I was like, okay, great. So I ran over to the library, and thank God I did, because we had everybody show up. The pie judging contest, we had congressmen, councilmen, we had all the mayors there. We had the pie recitation. It was standing room only. See this kid right here? He got all the way to 130 digits that day. It was a geek free cookie. Isn't he great? He's the hero, yes. Well, it just got better. See this next guy? This next guy is actually the father of, he's actually the father of the guy that won the pie recitation, the kid that did 130 digits. That's John Conway. He is one of the top 10 mathematicians to ever live. And yes, he knows my name. We're not. So you can see, people came. They were in it to win it. Look at those cute kids. It was amazing. The pie throwing contest, that was a big winner. And just when you think we kind of thought of everything, we had over 17 Einstein lookalikes show up. Oh, that's okay. Not a problem. Does that guy look like Einstein? If you want to compete, just so you know, this guy, he's not allowed to compete anymore because he looks too good. So it was amazing. The whole thing was great. Clearly, we built a little bit of our community that day. At least it felt like it, right? If you guys ever get inspired to do something like this, if you find your Ithaca, I'm hoping that you'll think of 3 things, basically. One is please make one decision based on love. It might be the decision that fails, but it won't be the one that you regret. The other thing is keep Ithaca always in your mind. That's what you're destined for. And the last thing is that when you feel yourself with kind of a moment, share the wealth. You will feel richer than a prince. Did I mention a prince? You probably think the prince is actually my husband my husband Steve, sorry. My son Stosh. It's not true. They've got their own kind of prince story. The prince really is the community. And I'd like to introduce you to that community. It's how I do it on every tour that we give. Before the Revolutionary War, colonists were obsessed with impressing the king. They named things after him. That's why we have Kingstown down the street, Queenstown closer in, and that's why you're in Princetown, New Jersey, named after the king, Prince William III. I know! Thank you so